Hello, hello. How we doing tonight, everyone? It is a long song, so I decided to cut it a little short here. Hopefully, all is well and you guys perform well today. Give me a quick confirmation that you guys can hear me and you guys can see my screen, and we'll get right into it. Awesome. Thank you. Nice. All right. Well, pretty standard day. I'm gonna be honest. In terms of higher time frame, it did exactly what we were looking for, right? If it's not the first time you've been in these peer reviews, you know that my reaction off of higher time frame reversal is very straightforward. I don't like to predict higher time frame reversals, so I like to just stick to what I know and I guess take it easy, right? So for example, in this case, after seeing this rejection here, I was very confident that we would continue on this move. Here, I'll lock it actually, that we outlined in the weekly outlook, right? So I was returning to bullish price action. But if the charts gave me a reason to short, then I would indeed take a short. Just something I wanted to point out. I look for a higher time frame whenever I look for a higher time frame swing to form. Anyways, for today specifically, I was waiting for the 10 a.m. news event. I don't like just trading 9:30 open every single day. I feel like that is pretty inconsistent in the long run. I like to frame it off the news. So even though we had a nice movement, and I'll showcase the same for ES, right, with the low being formed on Tuesday, which is already a high probability low of the week, I was still waiting for 10 a.m. to look for a long. If we go down the time frame, go to our 15-minute chart to analyze the day's price action, this is where it gets a little bit trickier, right? This is what I like to call a high resistance day. But if we look at ES, we'll notice that we just had a very classic trending day with the New York Open retracement. I believe I actually had someone a perf, so I will definitely link you this video since I don't see you in the audience right now. But he was asking me about a post I did a while ago, and he was like, okay, well, why do you know that after overnight expansion 9:30 retracement then you look for a continuation? Like, how did you come to this framework? Well, for me, it's very simple. It's whenever I look for a trend and I see that price has extended overnight, right, as we can see on ES more so than NASDAQ. But when price extends overnight, 9:30 will often cause a retracement, and if our higher time frame objective has not been met, then we look for continuation afterwards. Basically, just another way to say, if we are bullish, then we'll look for a continuation. And that is exactly what happened. On NASDAQ, that did form SMT. We were still trading within this fair value gap that we outlined yesterday, right, in yesterday's review. But on ES, we went a little higher, a little quicker, right? Uncorrelated markets can be a little hard to trade, but the truth is you just have to wait for your opportunity. That's the only difference, I guess, is the best way to put it. So high resistance market, just wait for price to be ready to extend. And how can you notice that? Well, for example, on a day like today, I would just wait for 10 a.m. If we look at ES right here, you'll see that 10 a.m. open. And let me actually bring that into my other indicator so that we can see it. There we go. We'll just do this. So I'm just going to wait for that to be plotted right here, 10 a.m. open. If we look at that 10 a.m. open right here, I still got a loss, by the way. I do want to point that out. I'm going to remove this higher time frame because as you can see here, there's a lot of information. First of all, I'm not looking for shorts. So let's be a little easier and only look for longs. Something else that we have to notice is I'm not looking to trade before the 10 a.m. news, right? So I'm only going to look at this. But as you can see with that 10 a.m. news, we had our slight move lower. I don't really require any sort of additional manipulation, right? There is already some higher time frame SMT with a key level, right? Current low of day. As we can see, ES is trading higher while NASDAQ is trading lower. So from this point on, I can already look for a long. So as soon as we form this breaker block right here, right, after trading below and then trading above on this candle, then this is a valid rise model entry. We'll place our low at the invalidation point and we'll look to target higher. Of course, we had our first premium in efficiency a little higher here, but actual targets, all of this is low resistance right up till here. And with the confluence of that midnight opening price right here, this was the partial I was looking for. Just to outline that very quickly. But as you can see, 2 minutes later, you got stopped out. Now, does this mean this was a bad trade? No. Does this mean I wouldn't take this trade looking back? Absolutely not. But we are in your high resistance markets, right? And as we can see, the next available entry gave you a win. It is really stupid like that sometimes. There doesn't have to always be a reason why you don't make money. And that is one of the hardest thing for a lot of people, right? Sometimes the chart just needs to generate more liquidity before it goes up. Sometimes it just needs to consolidate on your ass and manipulate one last time. You don't need to find a reason for it. You just need to follow a clear system. See, in this case, you have inversion fair value gap, and order block. So your stop would be at this low. Almost 25 handles is more than okay for a stop. And as we can see, to my partial objective offers enough risk to reward. And we went straight for it. We also hit the current high at this area. That was not current high of day, I wanted to say, but we did reach the current high of day. If I can draw it out, there we go, which would be just a clear area to take profit, right? I've said that multiple times before, but also these highs being the pre-market highs is how I like to call them. More importantly, there are these relative equal highs, right? So if I am to take profit, I like to take profit at both, but if I was to choose, this would definitely be the more important level. But as you can see, very straightforward at this point. You got TP1, then you had TP2 here, TP3. I like myself, whenever I have these kinds of move where I expect a higher time frame reversal, right? I want to be holding runners. So what I'll do is I'll take a big tip partial at my level. So for example, 50% of my position at this partial, and then I'll just take one off at every level that I want to take profit at. So for example, today I also took profits at 9:30 open because I saw the candle slow down a tiny bit at this point. But as you can see in 1 minute, I took one here, one here, one here, and then I was very happy with my results. I only had one contract left at this place. I had 7 contracts total in the position, took out 3 at this initial partial, then one, and then just held the other one for the rest of the day, break even. I didn't really mind if we returned to my opening price, and as you can see, definitely was a very good choice. Previous day high was the full exit of this move, but as you can see, this happened after 4. So for me, the actual exit was on this candle, 4 p.m. candle at this level. This is just how I like to do things. Trading prop firms taught me that I need to stop my trades at 4 p.m. And the truth is, this is just something that I like now, right? So I do have a swing trading account in which I do hold for overnight margins, but that is very different risk. Like I have thousands of dollars in that account and I'm trading 1 to 2 minis because overnight margins are pretty aggressive on your account. And let's say I want to give myself a $10,000 drawdown on my swing trading account and I want to be holding overnight, then I need a lot of margin to cover that call, right? This is not something I do on a day trading account, for example. So I like to close at 4. Of course, it left what is that? 45 handles, just a little under 45 handles on the table. Well, let's be honest, after just this initial price movement, you'd be somewhere, like even if you mismanage this entirely, you'd be at like 3 realized R. And after the easy moves that happened yesterday, which were all wins, I mean, you could end your week here and hit your average. Right? I don't know if I've talked to you guys about this before, but I look to average 7R a week, right? That's what I want. And of course, sometimes I have bad weeks in which, for example, I might lose money. Well, the next week covers it. Or 3 weeks after it, it's an average, right? That's what's important to point out. But always looking for it to balance it out and average around 7R a week. I don't know if I've ever spoken about that, so I think it's important to point it out. But other than that, that is the only move I'd really consider. I would not be looking for any sort of PM continuations. Why? Because you already had that move in the morning. And if we look at the morning price action, you took out current low of day, right? The pre-market low. You took out the pre-market high, which, by the way, in this case, this would be Asia session low, right? And very uncorrelated with ES. This is not the kind of areas where I would expect a lot of movement in the PM session. Of course, that would be wrong. But from my experience, from my anticipation, this move does not make sense for me to look for, right? We already had a big move in the morning. We already took out all of our key levels for the day. We're trading between previous day low and high. So yes, it could reach previous day high, but it's not a high enough probability for me to look for a PM trade. So it's really just that morning trade I'd be looking for. Since you've been trading Rise model, have you ever had a red month? I have actually. So the model did not, but I did. It was February 2024. In case you're wondering, it is etched in my memory, and I will never forget that month. And you might go ahead and backtest that month, and you'll notice it's actually a profitable month for the model, right? The mistakes were on my end, truly. And see, it's my birthday month too, February 6th. So it was a very, very fun month, but just filled with mistakes on my end, to be honest. And I did end slightly red. I was extremely lucky because at the last week of the month, I had a big win that basically covered a lot of my losses. So it ended up as a small red month instead of a huge red month. But my swing trading account sometimes is in the red for the month. Does the earnings release for Tesla and Google this afternoon change your thinking on the PM trades? Okay. So only someone stupid would say that those earnings don't affect the market, right? Because they directly impact them, and literally hundreds of traders just wait for those earnings and to then place positions in those specific stocks, right? So yes, it would be good to say that, hey, they'll bring volatility so I can trade that volatility. But myself, this is not a move or framework that I am familiar with. This is what I could tell you. So yes, it does make sense to trade off the earnings in the PM session if you didn't hit in the AM, as you said, right? Because if you're already up, just call it a day, right? But it is not something I'm familiar with. I do not have data about earnings at all, and I feel like it is something that is a lot less predictable, right? Because sometimes you'll see positive earnings, and like all of a sudden you drop 300 handles. And then you ask, what the fuck is going on? At least I do. That's what I do because I'm unfamiliar with the fundamentals behind that. So because of that, I don't like to comment on it, Speacock, right? I don't like to talk about things that I'm not, what's the word for that? Accustomed to, but that's not the right word. That I don't know shit about. That's how I can say it best. Sorry if that's a little bit vulgar, but that's actually it. Fair enough of an answer. Can't offend me, brother. Awesome. Honestly, I'd love to have a good source to give to you guys, but I don't know anyone that that uses fundamental analysis great and like that I could share, like for example, on his Twitter or something. I'd actually love to learn. So if you guys have anyone like that, I'd love to learn more about that. I'm seeing you guys type, so I'm guessing I might get a recommendation or two here. I don't use it, but I know it can change the dynamics of the day when those expectations are there. Yeah, 100%, right? Because as I said, there are literally hundreds of traders that are just waiting for those numbers to then do a pump in them. Julian Petrulia is the swing trading earnings a lot. Yeah, he would trade stocks, right? In that case, I mean, if I'm going to be swing trading earnings, then I'd like to look for a strong company. Yeah, that's more so something I'd call as investing. I wouldn't call that trading. And I mean, it's just a play on words, right? But for me, trading is when you place a position because you have an edge on the markets, and investing is all about belief and yeah, numbers. You might have an edge through the numbers where you see a strong company that you see a lot of sales coming in. You think we'll have strong numbers in the coming months, and then you place a position there. I wouldn't call that a trade. I'd call that investing in that company. But it is the same thing, right? It's just a different term I use to help me differentiate those things. But pretty straightforward. Do we have any final questions before we call it a day? Right? For me, today was really just about long and nothing else. And as you guys have seen, P&L today was one loss followed by a win. Definitely a little weird at the beginning, but after this huge candle, you would have been locked in at a break even for a beautiful additional runner after all of these partials. Pretty straightforward. And I think it was like 7R, 8R actually, all the way at previous day high. I did not reach it all the way up here. I got closed somewhere in this range for my final runner. I'm not seeing any additional questions, so we're going to call it a day here. We're going to see each other back tomorrow night for another one of these PA reviews. So see you guys then, and good luck trading tomorrow. Have a good one, guys. Always a pleasure, Speak On. Always a pleasure.